Welcome to the Health Fix podcast, where health junkies get their weekly fix of tips, tools, and techniques to have limitless energy, sharp minds, and fit physiques for life. Hey, health junkies. On this episode of the Health Fix podcast, I'm interviewing Dmitri Leonov, and we're going to be talking about the Taopatch. The Taopatch is a wearable nanotechnology device that combines light therapy with acupuncture. It actually captures heat from your body, converts it into light, and emits it into specific acupuncture points. Now, how cool is that? Now, this thing can stimulate your nervous system, and it has been found to really create some great results for folks with MS, Parkinson's, and other neurological conditions. It also is being used by some top athletes, including number one tennis player right now, Novak Djokovic, and he has called it the secret of his career. So that's pretty impressive. Now, the Taopatch was created in Italy, and it's used quite heavily by quite a few docs over there. There's a lot of research, fascinating stuff, and I don't want to give it all away. I want you to listen to the podcast because Dimitri's got some really cool things to say about the Taopatch, and I got to be honest, I'm intrigued, and I think I'm going to try this out and match it with a couple things I'm doing in my office. So, nevertheless, let's introduce you to Dmitri Leonov and talk about the Taopatch. Hey, health junkies, I have Dmitri Leonov on, and we are going to be talking about the Taopatch today, which is something that's super fascinating to me because I'm an acupuncturist, but also just very fascinating technology. I love stuff when we can use it as, let's put it this way, something that we don't have to ingest like lots of supplements. So, Dmitri, welcome to the Health Fix podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Now, we were talking a little bit before we got you started, and you said you are in Germany at the moment. What brings you to Germany? Are you there on vacation, having fun?
No, it's not. Northern Germany in November is not exactly the best place for vacation. No, my kids live here, so I spend quite a bit of time here.
Ah, nice. I was curious. Yes, November in Germany or even in Illinois where I'm at currently, definitely chilly and not the most lovely of places. So let's talk about something that does light us all up here is the thought of thinking about how we can use nanotechnology that combines light and acupuncture points. So fascinating stuff here. How did you come to find the Taopatch and the technology and all of the stuff? Give us the scoop.
Sure. Well, so yeah, I didn't invent the technology. Technology was invented in Italy a few years ago by a gentleman named Fabio Fontana. And the story is he had a really serious accident. And after the accident, he tried every possible therapy to help him, and nothing was really working except for light therapy, or specifically low-level laser therapy, which is a really well-studied form of medicine with a bunch of studies on it and a lot of practitioners using it. The issue with it is that it's a pretty bulky set of equipment. You need a power connection, and normally it's something you do at a doctor's office for an hour at a time, and afterwards you kind of go back to your normal life, and nothing. It doesn't really give it enough time to properly integrate into your body. So this is what kind of started the thinking, and then we developed this nanomaterial, which is inside the Taopatch, and this nanomaterial has a pretty unique set of qualities. So number one, it can capture the heat from your body. So in other words, your infrared energy, and it converts it into a broader spectrum of light. So it basically turns it from infrared light or infrared energy to light, all the way from infrared to ultraviolet. And the idea is then you place the patches on specific acupoints, and this is where the acupuncture or Chinese medicine comes in. So depending on where you place it, it can have a different effect. And when this light, and it's a very faint light, but you can actually see them, you can see it glow in the dark.
Oh,
But
wow.
yeah, and then really nice thing, so it doesn't need batteries. It uses your own body heat, and it works for 2.5 years. So the principle is you place them on these acupoints, and uh, it works for 2.5 years without batteries. So it's a really consistent delivery of light into your nervous system. And so why is this light important, and why does light therapy and specifically low level laser therapy work? The reason it works is the light that enters your nervous system is very similar to the biophotons that your nerve cells actually use to communicate. And I was taught in school that our nerve cells use electricity,
Hmm.
but actually back in the 70s, it was shown that they also use photons. And so basically, our photons from Taopatch, when they kind of go into your nervous system, they kind of remind, in a way, your central nervous system how it's naturally meant to communicate with your body, with the rest of your body, with your muscles and your nerves.
Wow.
And so, so the idea is that it's a very consistent, subtle but consistent communication that kind of allows your body to integrate these wavelengths, this light, and again, help your nervous system function naturally the way it's supposed to. So, why is this important? Is it's really helpful for all of us, and we have a equipment in our lab which shows basically in every single case, whenever we measure, for example, the balance of a person before and after putting on the patches, we can see that the person becomes much more physically balanced. And the way we measure this is there's this device called force plates. I'm not sure if you're familiar, which essentially measures how weight is distributed between within your feet.
Oh, wow.
So you can, if you're standing on this plate, there are sensors inside that are showing how the weight kind of changes and how your center of gravity moves, from left to right, from front to back. And
Ah.
with literally every single case, when we put somebody on these plates, we can see that the person becomes much more centered, and there's not the variation becomes minuscule, meaning the person just stands straight without moving around. If that makes sense, how I'm describing it. It would be much easier if I could show you, but hopefully I'm describing it well enough.
Sure, sure. No, I think
Mhm.
most people, that have been to different offices where, let's say, like the feet places where you could see the heat sensing in the feet,
Mhm.
like when we're looking at that, I think maybe we could visualize it somewhat like that of sorts, and seeing where the pressure points are, in terms of how we're distributing our weight. And if we're not distributing it evenly, then our energy isn't balanced from one side to the other. Is that a good way to kind of try to give folks a visual?
Yeah, this is so specifically what I was referring to is how the weight is distributed, how
Uh-huh.
like the center of gravity goes from your left to right foot, and how it is within the heel and the toes and so on. But really, what this is just one example. But really, what's happening is your entire nervous system begins to function better. And so the first system within the body that gets affected is your proprioception. And this is
Mm.
why balance is the first thing. The range of motion is another one. But it affects especially over time, it can affect your entire body. But the proprioception becomes a really, really important uh, improvement, particularly for really for two groups of people. And up until recently, most of our customers had neurological disorders, and this is people with, for example, multiple sclerosis or Parkinson's. where this communication, between your brain and the rest of the body gets damaged in some way. And for them, it's a really, really significant improvement. And on our website, if you go to taopatch.co, you can see the before and after videos. And a lot of them are taken within the same day. And you can literally see within minutes how people start to walk, straight instead of how they walked before, where it was a much more difficult process for them. And then the second group of people that we've been really helping is athletes. And we have quite a lot of athletes who are using us. We have 5 Olympic athletes, several world champions, including Novak Djokovic, who is the #1 tennis player, probably of all time, actually.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, at the press conference over the summer, he said that Taopatch, and I quote, he said, it's the biggest secret of my career, and I wouldn't be sitting here without it today.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was a very big testimonial for us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, having something on your body that your body actually activates is fascinating in and of itself, but also it's like, it kind of answers the question, kind of like you had said, something that you can keep the treatment going. That's the one bummer that as an acupuncturist, I was always like, oh, if I could just see someone every single day, we would move so much faster with this, and so seeing this be able to help folks with their movement and things of that nature. And like you're saying with MS in particular, we'll go back to that, seeing the improvement in one day sometimes, and you've probably heard of this from other practitioners, will get great improvement in one day, and then it kind of like the effect wears off, whereas the Tau patch can extend that, correct?
Exactly. And just to set expectation, like it's not always that noticeable within a day. Like in some cases, it takes longer to notice the difference. However, with equipment, we absolutely can always measure the improvement pretty much immediately.
Wow. Well, that's really awesome. I mean, you have to figure, and this is something, of course, for folks to understand, that, sometimes just depending on where the body is energetically, I call it, we have to sometimes wake up bodies a little bit more than others, depending on how toxic someone's body is or how much, damage there has been. I'm sure with you guys notice that too. Yeah.
Exactly. And this is kind of you bring up a really good point. So, the reason why any therapy is needed, right? Our bodies are kind of designed to function, normally. But yes, there are genetic factors, probably with things like MS or Parkinson's or other neurological disorders. But really, the toxicity that you brought up is why all of us can benefit from some form of therapy, because we're not designed to live in a world with toxins, with electromagnetic frequencies, right? With the artificial light, all of these things.
I do think that the artificial light is one of the things that really messes with us, and the concept of how the Tau patch is using light therapy, kind of using the light to stimulate the nervous system. I would love to go into that a little bit more, because I think folks are like, okay, so we emit a little bit of energy, and then the Tau patch kind of takes that and sends it back into us. Can you expand on that a little bit more?
Sure thing. Honestly, here's the thing. It's really, really, really difficult for us to kind of intuitively understand how this works.
Sure.
Right? Because especially when, and this is one of the challenges that we run into in trying to explain it, is like, you put this little tiny thing that looks like a plastic coin on certain points on the body, and then all these changes happen, and the changes are measurable, noticeable, and quite profound. It's really difficult to understand how this works. And frankly, I would think that it's similar to acupuncture in a sense, right? Like how does putting pressure or a needle on a certain point can have this profound effect? In this case, instead of using needles, we use light. Um, and the reason light is important is, number one, like I mentioned, um, it's similar to the light that our own nerve cells use to communicate. And
Mm-hmm.
then the other factor is the artificial light that we were just talking about. We evolved over millennia to wake up with the sun and experience more ultraviolet wavelengths earlier in the day, and then more infrared, or darker kind of orange wavelengths at night. And nowadays we don't really experience this, right? Sitting inside, our sleep is affected, and so on. And so by providing our body with more targeted, but all of these wavelengths, nonetheless, is a really is another reason why this is so helpful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hope I'm answering your question. It's a difficult one to answer, but honestly, the only way I would say, the best way to see how this works is to try it. And this is as a kind of a quote unquote alternative therapy. One of the ways that we get over this is to have a money back guarantee. So what we always recommend is try it, see if it works for you. If it doesn't work for you, just send them back, and we'll refund you your money. No questions asked.
Which
But yeah.
That's huge. I mean, that's
Mm.
incredibly huge. I saw that. And I think for a lot of people, that takes the barrier, right? It takes the barrier away to try it out and see what happens. What's been noted about Taopatch is that's the patented wearable nanotechnology. And I think for a lot of folks, they're thinking, okay, nanotechnology, it's absorbing things across the skin, but they're not thinking the light. So that's something that I think is absolutely fascinating. Is there anything else? Because when I was reading through, I saw nanocrystals. Is there anything that is besides the light getting absorbed across the skin? With the patches, are there minerals? Are there any salts, anything else that's on the patches, or is it just pure the reaction with your body's heat and energy and then the light coming in from that?
Nothing at all other than the light. This
Wow.
is kind of it's a really interesting point that you bring up as well. I would say there's a pretty fundamental difference between it's called holistic medicine and allopathic or Western medicine,
Mm-hmm.
where allopathic medicine kind of, well, first of all, it takes it breaks the body into different systems or body parts, and addresses individual symptoms usually, right?
Right.
Um, and which kind of usually further destabilize the overall balance. And by contrast, most holistic medicine looks at the whole body, right? And body, the mental state, your emotional state, and kind of treats the whole body, and really doesn't even treat anything. And this is my kind of personal opinion, but I would be curious if you agree. Most of the holistic therapy methods really just aim at bringing you into balance,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then the assumption is that once your body's in balance, it's perfectly capable of healing itself.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what holistic medicine is like. That's the foundation of what we do. Unfortunately, it's hard to sell the world of balance. Sometimes because we're trying to explain that if the body falls into balance, like you're saying, or gets into balance, I shouldn't say fall because we fall out of balance. I feel better about saying that. But when we come into balance, it's one of those things that all of the different symptoms that you're seeing, the signs that you're out of balance, start to fall away. And so it takes away the concept, like you said, of the very segmented Western view or conventional view of medicine. And so helping to try to folks bridge that gap in their mind that, wait, we have the possibility to literally give the body the tools it needs to balance itself. What? I'm sure you've run up against
Yeah.
trying to explain that to folks too.
Yeah, all the time. And what's really interesting in our case, it's we're using your own body's energy,
Yeah.
redirecting it back into your body, right? So there's really nothing external that's happening. It's all your own resources, kind of helping you rebalance yourself.
Which is super cool. I mean, I've never heard of anything quite like that where we're using our own resources, because when I was first looking at the patches, I was like, is it like a TENS unit? Like, are we adding? Because, so many things now we have all of this technology where unfortunately now we're adding more EMFs to our own systems. And so the fact that this is just your own body's energy being converted to help itself, I mean, pretty stinking genius. I gotta be honest, like, whoa, how did you how did you really were you doing research to come into contact with this? Were you looking at, technologies that you were like, hey, I really want to, try something out? Did you try it yourself? Like, give us a scoop there. Like, how
Yeah.
did you decide that like I have to share this with the world?
Happy to. So, my personal story is I come from so I'm a software
Mm-hmm.
entrepreneur. So I've come from that world. Then over the few years ago, rather, I kind of, I think like many people, uh, got really interested in trying to solve like real human problems, and health was probably the health and wellness is the one that just resonated with me the most. Um, Health is wealth, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so I got involved with an organization called Transformative Technologies, which was we had a conference, a kind of an incubator, and just an organization, um, kind of dedicated to promoting technologies for wellness, kind of the intersection of well-being and wellness and tech stuff, technology. And so I really started kind of looking into different tools, different companies, and so on. And then my partner, who's Italian, found well, actually his sister first came across Taopatch and started using it herself and saw incredible things with her health. Then my partner had a wrist injury. He tried it. He put it on his wrist, and again, it's the only thing that helped him. And so this happened right around COVID. And so
Wow.
what we up until then, the only way for you to use Taopatch would be to go to a doctor in Italy, and there's quite a network of practitioners in Italy that work with it, and work with a doctor. The doctor would describe it to you and try to put it on different points and kind of see what works. And so what we wanted to do is bring this to more people worldwide. And so we kind of simplified the protocols, and we found protocols that work best for most people, and we'll figure out how we can ship them to your door and help you put them on and wear them.
Ah, uh-huh. Okay. So transitioning it from like the traditional, like you said, doctors or acupuncturist office where we're as the practitioner choosing the points. Now you guys played with it enough or experimented enough and you're like, okay, we know that these particular sequences work for certain things. I noticed there's the sports patches, there's the mood patches, right? There's ones for mood as well, and then or a mental well-being, I guess you could say. And then there's the ones that are for the neurological side of things, like going back to, like you said, the multiple sclerosis, Parkinson's, and things of that nature. So give us a little breakdown on what's the difference between the different categories of tau patches. What's different about those patches from one to the other?
Sure. The only real difference is the specific wavelengths of light that are being
Mm.
emitted. So in some cases, there are plenty of studies that show difference in, for example, infrared light and the effect it has on your system, and ultraviolet light and the effect it has on your system. And so different patches have a slightly different, or in some cases, significantly different set of wavelengths that they emit. So, for example, the Taopatch Start is kind of our baseline product that we started with, and that one is kind of from infrared to yellowish wavelengths. Then the Pro is all the way from infrared to ultraviolet, and then Sports is kind of a subset of those. So it's a little bit more focused on sports, performance, recovery, and also pain management.
Okay.
But then, and all of them can help with different conditions and different things you're trying to influence. However, we really do owe almost everything to Chinese medicine and acupuncture, because most of the protocols that we've developed come from Chinese medicine, and really they're acupuncture protocols or acupuncture points. There, with some exceptions, of course, namely for example, for pain and injury recovery, wherever you have the injury, you just place them on that point, and what happens is the light goes to the root of the issue and actually helps regenerate tissue and helps the recovery itself. So it's not yes, the pain goes away, but it's not a painkiller. It's actually solving the actual problem.
Yeah, it's much different. I think a lot of folks might be thinking, like, Dmitri, is this kind of like those copper, patches that people had from Japan, or magnets or things of that nature? I think that's kind of what some folks might be thinking, like, okay, is it like, does it work like that? But I'm glad you mentioned, because back again to the light is affecting the acupuncture points and channels, and we're getting balance versus a full kind of just endorphin release and pain relief in the local area. That's really neat. That's really neat to think about that. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. I think the other part of this that, I could see it for workout and fitness recovery. I do find it fascinating, though, for the neurodegenerative conditions like the multiple sclerosis and Parkinson's. And with a lot of people having strokes more commonly nowadays, it does seem like this impact on the neurological system and helping the neurological system to find balance would be incredible. Now, you were saying that you were seeing folks getting changes, some people immediately, some people it took a little bit longer of time. Can you share any case studies? Like, for example, like if we look at MS or Parkinson's, folks who had, multiple years with either condition, do you have some case studies that you could share with us, or someone you saw that struck you or something like that, just to give us a little example?
Oh, ton. I mean, well, first of all, we have 17 published studies. So you can, if you go on our website, taopatch.co, we have a page with the science. There's links to the studies that we've done. And then we also have the reviews page, and even on our homepage, you can see the videos. So one of the things we recommend for everyone is to, especially for folks with MS or Parkinson's or other neurological conditions, is to record certain tests. For example, the tandem gait test, or kind of record your range of motion on video before and after, so you can measure the progress over time. I mean, we have literally thousands of case studies. It's it would be hard to name this one, but people start walking. Well, we had one patient who had Parkinson's for many years. He couldn't talk, and within 6 months, he started talking.
Wow.
So there's really a lot. Yeah.
Wow. No, that's right. I remember now seeing that on your site, that there's a lot of research. So folks, head over to taopatch.co. So Tao is TAO. We'll get to that here in the details in a little bit. It'll be in the podcast notes at drjkrausend.com. But yeah, I'm just thinking about all the different things. And of course, as an acupuncturist, I geek out and go, oh, how could I help, add in little point, tidbits for patients. Have you found, and it's okay if not, it's just something I have in the back of my mind, Have you found in your data that you guys have collected that your protocols that are more broad spectrum compared to the doctor's more specific ones, so kind of like how you're describing the Italian docs who were coming up with more complex protocols, have you found there to be much difference between the two subsets of groups? Is there an advantage to someone having a doc look over it, someone that's been trained, or do you find that the results really just don't matter?
There's definitely benefit to having a doctor work with us. And by the way, if you're interested, we'd love to to work with you as well. One of the really nice things about this is it's or about Taopatch is it's a therapy that you can kind of prescribe to your patient once they leave your office, right? So you can do your protocols in the office for an hour or however long you do it, and then put the patches on them afterwards, and then they can continue the therapy in a slightly different way, 24/7.
Huge. I mean, that's huge. And one of the things you had mentioned, this all came out during COVID, and it's one of the biggest struggles that a lot of acupuncturists and doctors that did body work therapy, we couldn't see our patients like we used to. And so, this is a way to not only extend treatments, but to also kind of use our own technology within our own bodies to help regain balance and possibly get a different type of result if you're seeing a doc versus on its own. And of course, I don't want folks to think like it doesn't work on its own. I'm just geeking out here, full disclosure, me geeking out and thinking in my head, because of course my brain is going many different directions as a whole. Now, one of the other really big things that I noticed about the patch, and something that you guys even highlight, was talking about mood and mental health. Can you speak a little bit to how the patch is affecting mental health? Because folks might be thinking like, okay, same concept with the light. What, is there anything different there?
Absolutely. So there are specific points that we use for for stress and anxiety, for instance, right? And the testimonials that we've heard are amazing. I think we have a couple on our website where there's just, let's see, I don't want to point any fingers, but one of the folks said, yeah, just my wife put them on and she stopped yelling at me. But there, and again, this is where Chinese medicine is. Again, we owe a debt of gratitude to it. So, for example, heart 7 or spleen 6 are the points we use for stress and anxiety. I think are kind of fairly typical points, right, for those cases. Spleen 21, pericardium 6 is another one. And so we literally just put the patches on those points.
Wow.
One of the nice advantages is because the patch is larger than a needle, you don't have to be as precise in finding the point, right? So you can put it kind of around there and it would still reach the same meridian. Yeah.
That's cool. That's cool. Yeah, I mean, that's definitely something to think about, because I have had patients ask me like, hey doc, can I just take the needles home and do the acupuncture on myself in between our visits? And I smile, because there, in certain cases, I have helped some folks out in that department because of, especially during the COVID stuff. But at this point in time, I'm like, this is so much less dangerous, just applying a patch versus having someone at home trying to figure out the needles on their own. And not only that, just extension of being able to use the body's own resources. So I guess my biggest question before we wrap up our conversation today is, for the Taopatch, do you recommend folks to consider using kind of like eating as clean of a diet as possible, like kind of lifestyle stuff, to get the Taopatch, to give it its best shot at working for you?
Absolutely. So the number one thing that we recommend is water. So what we've seen people who drink 2 to even better 2.5 liters of water per day see drastically better results than those who don't. So, and I even noticed this myself. When you put the patches on, you kind of feel a little bit more thirsty. And what happens is because your nervous system is firing on all cylinders, it requires more lubrication and conductivity, which is what water provides. And so water is absolutely critical for the patches to work. However, what I always tell folks is, this is not a magic bullet. You absolutely need to live a healthy lifestyle, right? If you're not exercising, if you're not moving your body, if you're eating terrible food, no amount of therapy is going to help, right? So it's part of your overall wellness arsenal. And the other question that people ask us is, okay, so I put them on and I say I'll wear them for the day, and then once I take them off, do the results last? What we've seen is in some cases they do last for a little bit of time. So, for example, my partner, who I mentioned, has had the wrist injury, and so he put them on his wrist for about a month and a half or a couple months, and then took them off for 3 days. And for the first 3 days, the pain was still gone, and then on day 3 it started to come back. And the reason this happens is, yes, there is some reprogramming that happens. Your body does recalibrate and begin to function the way it's naturally meant. But if you go back to your life the way it was, again, living in the city with, I was just looking at my Wi-Fi. I have literally 15 different Wi-Fi networks around me. This can't be good, right? So our daily life is kind of destabilizing us all the time, and so it's very because of this. We kind of need to fight against these external influences consistently, right? So, absolutely, the short answer is you do need to drink a lot of water. You do need to eat healthy, and just try to live the healthiest life you can.
Makes sense. And, also good point there in terms of all of the EMFs and different things we're exposed to on any given, day. It's something we need to be thinking about. And that's what I like about the Taopatch. It's not a technology that requires Bluetooth or something, or an app or something of that nature, and I like that. I like that more and more these days as how we're transitioning into things. I think the other thing you had mentioned that I'd love for you to kind of share with folks. Now, you said they last 2.5 years. If someone's like going to use a hot tub, they're going to go swimming, they're going to do certain things. When can you take them off and put them back on? And after 2.5 years, I mean, is it meant to be like continuous use for 2.5 years? Like, how does that work?
Great question. So first of all, they are waterproof, and to place your body, you can use any Band-Aid or any skin tape. We include specific tape that we found works best. But yeah, you can absolutely take them on and off. I definitely recommend for just hygiene purposes to take them off from time to time and clean them and make sure you maintain personal hygiene. But they do work for 2.5 years, and what that means is we've seen that for 2.5 years, the rate at which the patches convert your heat into light stays about the same. After 2.5 years, it starts to decrease. However, it doesn't. It's not that they just stop working after 2.5 years. It just gets a little bit weaker signal over time.
Gotcha.
But yeah, you can wear them 24/7, and lots of folks do. Obviously, with again taking them off from time to time, at least to clean them. There are also different protocols that we recommend using from time to time. For example, we have a liver cleanse protocol, and kidney detox protocols. And for example, for sports, for athletes, we have some points for performance that you would put them on during the game or training. And then there are certain points you would wear them for recovery for the next day. So you can move them around on different points for different things you're trying to achieve.
That's important. Yeah, I was kind of wondering, like, are you stuck with where they're at? Can you move them around? Which is genius, and makes sense, right? Because we're evolving people and our energy shifts from day to day, sometimes even. So nice. Good to know that you can shift it there too. Wow. And
Yeah.
and at the price point that you guys are at, compared to having an acupuncture visit every single day, or getting I call it your energy dialed in every single day, I mean, it's pretty dang cost effective, if you ask me. So I mean,
sorry, I totally agree with you, and this is one of the points that we always get, not always, but from a lot of folks, we get this pushback, like, hey, they're $300 for a set of three, which is really all you need. And the point that we make in these cases is, number one, this actually is really, really expensive, complicated technology to make. It took us a really long time. Each patch really does cost a lot to produce, because if you think about it, the technology itself is pretty magical, especially because of how thin and small it is. But then, yeah, if you kind of look at the cost over 2.5 years, if you amortize it per day, it's pennies per day.
Yeah, and with so many people telling me these days, like, doc, trying to meditate is impossible, trying to get my balance right, I just don't have time. I mean, this is 24/7 balancing, which I I find incredibly useful, and wow, just mind-blowing in terms of all the thoughts that I have in my head of how I could incorporate it into my practice and get my folks long-term results. So that being said,
Definitely.
let's tell folks, like, let's tell them the website, let's give them how they can learn more about Taopatch, all your guys' social media, if you have some, and things of that nature, so that folks can really interact with your brand and really understand what they're getting into, and how to find even docs that are using Taopatch too, if they're interested in that department.
Sure thing. So the website is taopatch.co, TAO patch, PATCH, .co. And on the website, you can find our social media. There's our email, our phone number. So you're welcome to call us and talk to our team if you have any questions. Unless you're living in Europe at the moment, we don't have a huge practitioner network. So this is actually something we're starting to build. And again, Jane would love to talk to you about this as well. But yeah. We're always here to support, to answer any questions. And then once you purchase the patches, again, we like to think of ourselves as we're always available. Our care team is, I don't want to say we're a doctor or a practitioner, but we're always around. We're always here to help, make sure you get the most out of it. And if you're not seeing the results that you're looking for, you're always welcome to return them, and we'll happily refund you.
That's huge. That is huge. My goodness. So much good stuff. I'm really excited about this, and I can't wait for this podcast to come out too, because I think these are definitely something that I've been wondering, how can you extend a energetic based treatment for folks when they can't always get into the office to see me, especially like in the case of my practice being remote a lot of the time. So such cool stuff, Dmitri. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing Taopatch with us. I look forward to hearing more and chatting with you more as I integrate this into my practice.
That sounds amazing. Would love that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Hey, fellow health junkie, thanks for listening to the Health Fix podcast. If you enjoyed tuning in, please help support me to get the word out about the podcast. Subscribe, rate, and review, and just get that word out. Thanks again for listening.